You really have to dissect the white supremacy that we're taught and internalized racism that we all that I think a lot of Black people have, like trying to dissect those notions from the truth of ourselves is radical.
Hello and welcome to Tea Talks. My name is Sid and I am the creator of Roots Holistic, a lifestyle brand promoting mindful living. And Tea Talks is an intentional space for conversation around mindful living, healing, and liberation. Today we are here with a dear friend of mine, Kisha Hughes. Kisha is a yoga instructor and a brilliant writing teacher living in Richmond, Virginia. And I'm excited to form some conversation around different literary works that we have found helpful during the processing of this current moment in history. Welcome, Kisha. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
So just wanted to start with a check-in. Today, how are you feeling? What is a word or two that would describe just where you've been at this week or where you've been at today?
Today I felt more focused than I have this week. This past week has felt very scattered. And it's kind of been difficult to draw my attention into one particular thing. So I also didn't do a very good job of trying to rein myself in. I was just like, brain, we're just going to do the thing. And brain was like, okay. And so that's where I'm at.
I understand that, giving the brain permission sometimes to just be in all the spaces for a moment.
Absolutely. And it's I would catch myself being like, you should probably meditate. And I was like, but I don't want to. And so I did it. And I wouldn't say that I suffered, but I probably would have done better to meditate.
I feel that too. Yes. I am personally today feeling sleepy or tired. I've been feeling sleepy tired for the past week. And I think I agree with you. I haven't been meditating daily like I would like to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite sure where that resistance comes from necessarily, but I do recognize that the seated meditation is a place of rest. And I probably would feel more rested if I were doing that more regularly. So I'm with you, The ebb and flow of the practice is real.
Right. Absolutely. And I think it's important to be honest about that and to be real about it. The week before, I was really in my practice and, I felt very different. And I think maybe that, weeks like this kind of serve to remind me of why I do these practices and, how effective they really are when I am, regularly, intentionally taking care of my spiritual well-being and my mental health.
Right. Now more than ever, so important. But it's hard, like you're saying, when there's so many other things that are going on, it is hard to continue to prioritize the practices that are most serving for us.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to open the question around what literary works we've been reading that have been informing our processing of this moment. Because I feel along with the different practices for our spiritual health and well-being, their reading and writing seems to be, and I don't know, maybe you have more to say about this, but a spiritual practice as well.
For sure. I think, for me, I started writing when I was very young. As soon as I learned how to write, I spent a lot of time writing songs and poems and stories. And it was just something that was innate in me. It was something that I loved to do. And I found that once I was in high school, I started trying to like, make it more businessy and learn more about the industry. And it took a lot of the joy out of it for me. And so what I'm finding now is I'm trying to like get back into the practice of writing in a way that is still, processing emotion, but also trying to find the joy in it and trying to recapture why it is something that feels so innate to me, why it is something that does feel very spiritual. And part of that is reading. Part of that is, like as I've gotten into yoga, as I became an instructor, I started to realize that reading is a lot like meditating to me.
Mm.
And maybe the better word is like it's meditative. And I find that, I'm finding stillness while I'm reading. I'm focusing on what's happening. And so like as I'm doing that, like, the images that I'm reading are like, coming into the brain. And, I'm feeling what I'm supposed to feel based on, what I'm reading, but the practice itself feels very grounding to me and very just familiar and homey.
Yes. I love that idea of bringing the joy back into the experience of reading and writing as well. I've been trying to think about Black joy. Like,
Mm.
I've been seeing a lot of Instagram posts about it and stuff, but I'm like, really like, well, what is Black joy to me, or like to other people? Like, what brings that to people's experience?
Hey, I think sometimes it's like maybe you've had an experience where you catch yourself enjoying something and you catch yourself um kind of in a feeling where you're like, this is me, this feels like who I am. And I think for me, like, joy is, there's so many different things that can bring that up. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was in the kitchen, I was cooking something, and I wanted to listen to the Labyrinth soundtrack. And like, I'm a big David Bowie fan. So I turned that on and I was singing and dancing in the kitchen and making food. And I was like, I just really felt like myself in that moment. It made me feel really happy, and it made me think of being a kid and when I first heard those songs. And I could go on a whole tangent about like Jim Henson in the 80s, but all of those things made me really feel home in myself and in my body and in my just being.
I love that definition of joy, like when you feel most like yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. And the freedom to feel comfortable being oneself, right?
Right. 100%.
What have you been reading recently, or what would you like to share with folks?
I just started reading a short story collection called, I brought it with me,
Yay.
Heads of Colored People by Nafisa Thompson Spires.
Wow. Okay, what's it about?
So the first story, well, I don't want to give everything away, but
Spoilers.
It's a collection of short stories. So the story I'm reading right now, the main character, Fatima, is exploring what it means to her to be Black in the 90s. And she's going to a prep school that is predominantly white, and she's not fitting into either world and not being accepted by either group. And so it seems that she's kind of like trying on this different identity to see if it fits.
And so how is that informing where you're at in the space and time?
It's informing me, and it feels very affirming. And again, it's like, when it comes to identity, I think a lot of times it's something that we consider inherent. It's something that we consider like, you were born this, you are this, the end. And I think that it doesn't leave a lot of room for the reality of fluidity. and the reality of change and growth, and how experience informs identity and informs personality and how we see ourselves. I think it's just kind of helping me reconcile like the past Kishas, like
Yeah.
Kisha in middle school, Kisha in high school, Kisha now. And I think that that's what's so important about literature and writing, is that you get to explore in a way that doesn't always feel safe in the moment, or like in a way that you don't think to explore while you're in it. Gives you some space.
Yeah, that's interesting. The idea of this piece of writing bringing up the different versions of self that you've lived through thus far.
Mm-hmm.
I have felt like during this time, layers of history, like we're living through layers of histories and different experiences at once, and it, maybe it's because of the quarantine where it did slow down enough that there was time for reflection and like thinking about where I've been and where I am now. But I I want to say that everyone is kind of doing a little bit of that, like thinking back and like, how did we get here? Again, journey of change, right?
Right. Absolutely. I think that's the perfect parallel and the perfect like drawing together of what's going on right now. There is a lot of reflection happening. There is a lot of like personal reckoning in some cases. Especially for like a lot of white people who were like, "Oh my God, what do you mean this is happening?" And it's like, it's been happening. Welcome. And right. Good luck. I don't mean to be flippant, but also like, yeah, I think there's a lot of personal reckoning happening, and like not just personal, but it's like this personal reckoning that's kind of happening from this collective reckoning that has an even larger context and a longer history, and a lot of the metaphor I'm going to make is going to be very, small comparatively, but it's like when you're cleaning out a closet and you have to pull everything out and you have to sort it. And there's a point when you're cleaning out this closet and you step back and you look at the room and it's covered in mess. And you're like, oh my God, this is so much worse than when it was just away.
Yes.
But then once you've organized it and you see what's there and you can throw out what you don't need or donate, and then you put it all back together and you look at it, you're like, this feels much better. This is clean now. It's ready. I am ready to move on with my life. And I think that this is exactly what's happening right now. It's like we are cleaning out America's closet. We are in the part where we are knee deep in shoes that don't fit us anymore, and we just got to walk through
it. That's a great visualization. So helpful because yes, and in the reorganizing, everything starts to have its own place.
Right.
And like, what is in there. And I think that is a lot about like this closed door closet is like, we've lived generations and there's still like stuff in there from like generations back that you don't even know is in there.
Right. You're just like, what is it?
Like, when did I wear this?
Right, but it's mine and I've got to do something with it.
Hey, so I have been reading, I brought with me Sister Outsider, which is one of my favorites. And it's a work of essays. So there's like lots of different essays in here, and I haven't even gotten to all of them, but I've reread it. For me, Audre Lorde's work is, every time I read it, is like a new understanding. because
Mm.
of the way that she like weaves language together. It's just like every time I'm like, oh, like I didn't even see that the first time, but I wanted to share anyway. It's called Eye to Eye, um, Black Women, Hatred, and Anger. It's
Mm.
fascinating. It's she's talking about how um, this country's hatred towards Black people and especially Black women um, creates a relationship between Black women that has like anger in it and all these different feelings because
Mhm.
we wear the face of each other, but we also wear the face of like what we're taught to hate or to not have tolerance for. um,
Ooh.
so it's really interesting. I definitely recommend reading. But the quote is, "It is easier to deal with the external manifestations of racism and sexism than it is to deal with the results of those distortions internalized within our consciousness of ourselves and one another."
I feel that deeply and strongly. It's everything from internalizing how you wear your hair to, you know, color of your skin, to the way that you walk, to the way that you express your displeasure, to the way that other Black women express their displeasure to you. It is almost easier to deal with what's on the outside because you're used to that. It's easier to deflect it when it's not somebody who looks like you giving that to you. um or when it's, yeah, but when it's on the inside, it's like you really have to dissect that, like that the white supremacy that we're taught and internalized racism that we all like, that I think a lot of Black people have, like trying to dissect those notions from the truth of ourselves is radical, and it's important for us to do that work. And it just, that quote sounds so true.
When talking about the like internalized stories that we have that could be distorted, and like that work of like going inward to try to uncover the stories that are true to us and uncover the stories that are distorted. And I feel like that goes back to what you were saying earlier about our joy, and our joy being like being able to be our full authentic selves. And
Right.
it's like this work of uncovering the true and the distorted stories is essential in being able to recognize like what is my true self outside of the conditioning that this world has put on me.
Right. Absolutely. And it's like, I think that's part of what makes this moment, and like, I mean, we'll talk every moment, so difficult, where it's like you don't get to just exist as a Black person in America. It's about this striving to just survive and to be, you feel like you need permission to just exist. And I think those moments where we do get to like go inward and chat with ourselves and our spirit and our ancestors is like it's invaluable. I do have a poem that I would like to share, and the one that I like to read is called Blessing the Boats. And it's, I don't know, this lovely, feels like a prayer, feels like a like good wishes to send out to people. So this is called Blessing the Boats by Lucille Clifton. At St. Mary's. May the tide that is entering even now the lip of our understanding carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it, certain it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever. And may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that.
Yes, I love that. Ah, water right now. So necessary.
Yes, 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 yes. Like water is definitely one of my more favorite elements. It kind of encapsulates creation and nurturing and healing. And it also has the power to destroy and to break down and to smooth and to make rough. It is all things.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for taking time out to just spread a little bit of your wisdom.
Thank you for asking such awesome questions and for letting me talk about stuff that I love talking about.
Yeah.
Somebody I adore.
Yes, I adore you back. Oh, this is so fun. All right, guys, thank you all for joining us. As always, checking in next Friday for a new Tea Talk edition. And until then, I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, and stay well.